there everyone. Today we are going to be making pickled beets. Here you can see in this pot I've got my jars and my lids already in the hot water, and they're going to get sterilized for about 15 minutes. So once that water comes to a boil, I'm going to leave them in there about 15 minutes, and then I'm going to turn that pot off. But we'll come back to that in a little bit. Over here in this pot we've got some beets. Not a lot. There's only like 5, but 3 of them are really big. So that's going to be enough to make a couple of bottles of beets. I wasn't planning on making beets, but someone gave me the beets, and that's one of the best ways that we like them here. So we've got those beets there in a pot of hot water, and we're going to let those boil for a little bit. It usually takes somewhere around 20 minutes to get beets to boil, so that they're pretty much cooked all the way through, especially as big as those ones are. And then you see here in this big pot, we got this full of water in here, and that's getting heated up to a boil, because that's where we're going to put our jars to seal our beets after we get our beets all cut up and the skins off and put into our bottles. So we're just going to let all that stuff heat up for now, and we'll be back in a little bit once the beets are ready and the jars and lids here are done, and this water here in this pot finally boils and gets heated up. Once this water in this pot here boils, though, we're going to turn it off, and we're just going to let it sit and stay nice and warm while we get the beets and the bottles ready. We'll have to make some liquid to go in our bottles, and we'll be back to do that once we get the beets and everything else squared away. So I'll be back in about 20 minutes. Okay everyone, I'm back. As you can see, my beets are all boiled now and ready in the pot to be taken out and placed into some cold water. So I'm just going to gently try to pop out one of these beets. Oops, sorry. Trying to chew gum, and it's like chewing gum and jumping rope. It just doesn't work very good. So we're just going to take these beets and we're going to put them in the ice cold water here in the sink, just like this, until all of the beets are in the cold water. And we're going to let them sit there in that cold water for about 5 minutes until they get nice and cool. As you can see, a couple of these beets are really huge, and they're going to fill up the bottles nicely. I only took out 3 bottles, as you can see, because I don't think these beets are going to fit much more than that. And I know a lot of people keep the beet water to use to mix with their vinegar to fill their pots, but I find the beet water just has a little too much of an earthy flavor for me, so I tend not to use it. So anyway, we're going to let these beets sit here for about 5 minutes and cool, and during that time they should release their skins, and it should make it really easy. The skins should just peel right off. In the meantime, over here in this pot, we have our jars all hot and ready to go. So we're just going to take out the rings and the bottles, and I know I'm just using a regular pair of tongs. A lot of people have fancy canning tools, and ironically I have all those fancy canning tools. But we moved and we put a lot of stuff into storage, and I didn't think I would be pickling So I never kept any of that stuff out. But, contrary to popular demand, you can use your tongs quite effectively. You just have to be a little bit more careful. So you can if you don't have fancy tongs and stuff at home. You just have to be a little more careful when you're handling the hot bottles. But it still works, as you can see. I managed to get all my bottles, so they're sitting here on the dry cloth, drying. They're still going to be hot, because you want them a little bit warm when you go to put your beets and your liquid in them. So, that's that. And then as you can see over here on the stove, my pot of water to seal my bottles is all hot and boiled, and I have that turned off and it's ready for me. But I realized that I don't have any pickling spice. So here's all my things, and I'm going to have to make pickling spice from scratch so that I can use it in my pot. So I'm going to go here for a few minutes and get some of that together and set up my pot to make the liquid for my bottles, and I will be back shortly. Okay everyone, I'm back, and since I don't have pickling spice, I'm going to have to make some, and I just set out all the things that I may need to make it, and I'm going to tell you everything and put it in and make homemade pickling spice. So first you're going to need 2 tablespoons of mustard seed. There they go in the container. And then next you're going to need a tablespoon of whole coriander seeds. Now I don't have coriander seeds and it's not something I use, so I have ground coriander, and apparently it makes a good substitute as well. So there you go. 1 tablespoon of coriander. The next thing you're going to need is a tablespoon of whole allspice buds. So here we go. And I know that doesn't look like a tablespoon, but I get my allspice from the bulk burn, and they're not uniform. Some of them are really huge, like you can see, and then some of them are medium size and some of them are small. But that is a full tablespoon of allspice buds. The next thing that you're going to need is 1 teaspoon of red pepper flakes, right there. Now, it says that you can go to taste. If you like your stuff a little hotter, you can put a little more. If you don't really like it too hot, you could put a little less. So you could go as much as 2 teaspoons if you like it hotter, and a half a teaspoon if you don't like it hot at all. The next thing calls for ground ginger. Now, I have ground ginger and I have regular ginger, which I could have just chopped up and did little ginger bits, but for this purpose, the ground ginger just works fine. So it's a tablespoon of ground ginger. Next up, we have bay leaves. Now, it says 3 large bay leaves, but I don't get large bay leaves. For some reason, every time I buy a package, they're just little tiny things. So I did 6 bay leaves, little ones, and you just crumble them up into pieces. You can half them. I suppose you could whole them, but I think when you break them up, it just makes it a little bit better. The next thing is, it says 2 cinnamon sticks on the recipe, but I find 2 cinnamon sticks just is a little too much. So I take one really nice big cinnamon stick and I break it up into strips as best I can, and then I snap that into little pieces. So there is your cinnamon stick. Next up is cloves. Now it says 6 to 8 cloves, but I find 12 is the magic number, so there is 12 cloves. Next, black peppercorns. Now, I don't actually use black peppercorns. I have like a mixed, there's like red, white, and black in there, and that just works fine. If you have red peppercorns or white peppercorns or black or the mix like I have, I don't think it really matters too much for the peppercorns, but it's 1 tablespoon regardless whether you use red, black, or white. So there's 1 tablespoon of peppercorns. And the last thing is dill seed. And it says 1/2 cup of dill seed. Now, these are dried dill seeds, but they're fresh dried dill seeds that I dried myself. And I'm not sure if they're, I think they're stronger than the regular ones. So I'm saying 1/2 tablespoon of dill seed is going to be plenty for my fresh ones. But if you're using store-bought, you might want to add just a little bit more. Anyway, so there's everything in the homemade pickle spice. And then you just take a spoon and you stir it all up. I wish you could smell it with smell-o-vision, because it smells really good. Once you put that in with your vinegar and water and you get that a-boiling in your pot, that is going to smell the house up wonderful. So that's all for this right this second. I'm going to pop you off and I'm going to get the stuff set up for the vinegar mixture for the beets, and I will be back.